The wind didn't just howl, it screamed. It clawed across the broken wasteland, dragging ash and metal shards through the air like knives. Nothing lived here. Nothing could live here. That's why the sound made him freeze. A faint, broken cry. He stopped walking. For a moment, he told himself it was just the wind twisting through wreckage, just another trick of a dead world trying to kill the living. But then it came again. Weak, desperate, alive. His grip tightened around his rifle as he slowly turned toward the collapsed ruin beside him, a half-buried structure, torn open like something had tried to claw its way out. "Oin!" He exhaled slowly. "Don't do this," he muttered to himself. "Not here." This sector was marked off-limits for a reason. Ships didn't just crash here, they vanished. Entire crews, gone without a trace. No distress calls. No bodies. Just silence. And now, something was crying. Another sound, sharper this time. Not the wind. Not metal. A whimper. He cursed it under his breath and stepped closer anyway. Each footstep sank into the gray dust as he approached the wreckage. The air felt wrong here. Too still between the gusts, like the world itself was holding its breath. His scanner flickered uselessly at his wrist, static crawling across the display. No readings. No life signs. Nothing. But the crying didn't stop. "Yeah," he whispered grimly. "That's exactly how people die." Still, he knelt. Carefully, he pushed aside a jagged slab of metal, then another. The sound grew clearer with every movement. Small, uneven, struggling. Something alive was buried down there, and it was running out of time. He hesitated. Every instinct screamed at him to walk away. Whatever made that sound wasn't human. Out here, that meant one thing: danger. Creatures on this world didn't cry for help. They lured it. He'd seen what was left of men who ignored that truth. Bones, armor, silence. The cry came again, softer now, fading. His jaw tightened. Damn it! With a sharp breath, he dropped his rifle to his side and started digging faster, ripping away chunks of twisted debris with bare hands. Metal tore at his gloves. Dust filled his lungs, but he didn't stop. "Hold on," he growled. "Whatever you are, just hold on." A final slab shifted, and the sound stopped. His heart skipped. No, no. He shoved the last piece aside and froze. There, curled in a shallow hollow beneath the wreckage, was the smallest creature he had ever seen on this cursed world. It was wrong. Not just alien, impossibly alien. Its body was delicate, almost fragile, covered in smooth, pale skin that shimmered faintly under the gray light. Thin limbs trembled weakly against its body. Its chest rose in shallow, uneven breaths. And its eyes, they flickered open, large, luminous, not filled with rage or hunger, but pain. It let out a tiny, broken sound. Not a threat, not a lure, just suffering. He stared at it, his mind struggling to catch up. "This," he whispered, barely audible over the wind, "this is what's been making that noise." The creature tried to move, just a slight twitch, but it couldn't. One of its limbs bent at an unnatural angle. Dark fluid, its blood, he realized, stained the dust beneath it. Dying. It was dying. His expression hardened. "No," he muttered. "No, no, no, this doesn't make sense." Creatures like this didn't exist alone. Not here. Not ever. Where there was one, there were more. Something cold slid down his spine. Slowly, he looked up. The wasteland stretched endlessly in every direction. Broken ships, twisted metal, empty horizon. Nothing moved. Nothing watched. Nothing. The wind shifted. For a split second, everything went silent. No howl. No scraping metal. No breath. Just stillness. And then a presence. Heavy, ancient, watching. His body locked up before his mind could react. Every instinct screamed at once. "You are not alone." His hand snapped back to his rifle as he turned sharply, scanning the ruins, the sky, the distant dunes, anything that could explain the sudden, suffocating feeling pressing down on him. But there was nothing there. Nothing he could see. Only the wind returning, slowly, like it had never stopped. His pulse hammered in his ears. "Yeah," he said under his breath, voice tight. "That's not terrifying at all." Behind him, a faint sound. He turned back instantly. The hatchling, it was looking at him. Not past him, not around him. At him. Its tiny body trembled as it let out another weak, fragile cry, as if it knew he was about to leave, as if it was asking him not to. He stared at it for a long moment, then exhaled sharply. "You've got to be kidding me." He glanced once more at the empty wasteland, at the ruins, at the silence that didn't feel like silence anymore, then back at the dying creature. "Fine," he muttered. "This is a terrible idea." Carefully, slowly, he reached down and lifted the hatchling into his arms. It was lighter than he expected, warm, fragile. Its small body curled instinctively against him, clinging weakly to his jacket as if it had already decided he was its only chance. "Yeah," he said quietly, adjusting his grip. "Let's both hope I don't regret this." The wind howled again, louder this time, almost angry, and far behind him. Something moved. He didn't see it. He didn't hear it. But if he had turned around in that moment, he would have realized the truth. He hadn't just saved something helpless. He had taken something that was never meant to be alone. And now, something ancient had started following him. The hatchling was still alive. That alone didn't make sense. By the time he reached his ship, a rust-scarred transport barely holding itself together, it should have died twice over. The cold alone should have finished it. The blood loss should have done the rest. But it hadn't. It clung to him. Even now, as he climbed the loading ramp, the small creature tightened its weak grip on his jacket like it understood one simple truth. Let go, and die. "Yeah," he muttered under his breath, glancing down at it. "I'm starting to get the same feeling." The ramp groaned shut behind him with a heavy clang. Inside, the ship felt smaller than usual. Quieter, safer, but not by much. He moved quickly, setting the hatchling down on a worn metal table under a flickering overhead light. For a moment, he just stared at it again, really looked this time. Up close, the details were worse. The broken limb, the shallow breathing, the faint, uneven pulses beneath its thin skin. Whatever it wasn't built to survive this kind of damage. And yet, it was trying. "All right," he said, dragging a medkit closer. "Let's see what you are before you decide to die on me." The scanner inside the kit blinked to life as he passed it slowly over the creature's body. Then it froze. The screen glitched. Static flickered wildly. And then, error, unknown biology. He let out a dry, humorless laugh. "Of course you are." The hatchling twitched as the scanner passed over its chest, letting out a faint, pain sound. Yeah, I know," he said quietly. "Not your fault." He hesitated. Treating unknown alien biology wasn't just dangerous, it was stupid. One wrong move, and he could kill it, or worse, trigger something he didn't understand. But doing nothing, that was a guaranteed death sentence. His jaw tightened. "Terrible idea," he repeated softly. Then he got to work. Time blurred. He stabilized the limb as best as he could, setting it carefully with splints meant for human bones, hoping, blindly, the structure wasn't too different. He cleaned the wound, sealing it with a general-purpose biofoam that hissed softly as it reacted. The hatchling trembled the entire time. Not violently, not aggressively, just enduring. Every now and then, it made that same weak sound, not loud enough to be called a cry, just enough to remind him it was still fighting. "Yeah," he murmured while tightening the wrap. "You're stubborn. I'll give you that." When he finally leaned back, exhaling, the worst of the bleeding had stopped. The breathing, still shallow, was steadier. Alive. Barely. But alive. He ran a hand over his face. "Congratulations," he muttered. "You're officially my problem now." The ship hummed quietly around him. For a moment, everything felt normal. Too normal. Then the lights flickered. Once. Twice. He froze. Slowly, he looked up. "Don't start," he said under his breath. The ship's systems weren't great, but they didn't just fail like that. Not without a reason. He stood, instinctively reaching for his rifle. The hum of the engine shifted slightly, lower, strained, like something was interfering. His eyes snapped to the control panel across the room. The external sensors were running, but the readings, They were wrong. Static. Distortion. Just like before. No, he whispered. He moved quickly, tapping commands into the console, forcing a manual scan sweep. Come on, come on. The system lagged, then refreshed, and for a split second, something appeared. A massive shape, right behind the ship. His breath caught. The screen glitched instantly, static swallowing the image before it could fully render. But it was enough. It was real, and it was close. Very close. His grip tightened on the console. I knew it, he breathed. Slowly, carefully, he turned his head toward the rear of the ship, toward the closed ramp, toward the thin barrier separating him from whatever had followed him out of that graveyard. Silence. No sound. No impact. No movement. Just presence. That same suffocating weight pressing against his senses. Watching. Waiting. His pulse pounded. Okay, he whispered, forcing his voice steady. Okay, think. If it wanted in, it would already be inside. The hull wouldn't stop something that big, which meant one thing. It wasn't attacking. Not yet. A faint sound broke the silence. He turned sharply. The hatchling. It had shifted slightly on the table, its small head turning weakly toward the back of the ship, toward the ramp. Its eyes were open, wide, focused, not on him, on it. And then it made a sound. Soft, different, not pain, not fear, something else. Recognition. His stomach dropped. You've got to be kidding me, he whispered. Slowly, he looked back toward the ramp, the metal door, the thing on the other side, and for the first time, a thought formed that was far worse than anything else. It didn't follow him. It followed the hatchling. The realization hit hard. Cold. Heavy. Yeah, he said quietly, stepping back from the door. That makes a lot more sense. Behind that thin wall, something ancient waited, not attacking, not leaving, just staying close, guarding, watching. He exhaled slowly, running a hand through his hair. This, he muttered, glancing between the hatchling and the sealed ramp, is exactly how people die. The hatchling let out another faint sound, weaker now, but calmer, as if whatever was outside wasn't a threat, at least not to it. He stared at the creature for a long moment, then looked back at the door. Yeah, he said under his breath. I made a very dangerous choice. Outside, something shifted, not aggressive, not loud, just enough to remind him of one simple truth. He wasn't alone, and whatever waited beyond that door wasn't going anywhere. He didn't open the ramp, not that night, not the next, and whatever was outside didn't force its way in. That was the part that bothered him the most. By the third day, the hatchling was still alive. That alone should have been impossible. He stood over the table, arms crossed, watching the small creature breathe. Slow, steady now. The biofoam had held. The splint hadn't shifted. Even the discoloration around the wound had faded. It was healing. Fast. Yeah, he muttered. You're definitely not normal. The hatchling stirred slightly at the sound of his voice, its thin limbs twitching as its eyes flickered open. Those same glowing eyes locked onto him again. Aware. Focused. It made a soft sound, quieter than before. Stronger. 2. Don't get attached, he said under his breath. That never ends well. Still, he didn't step away. He had tried to leave. Twice. Both times, something stopped him. The first time, it was the engine. He had powered everything up, plotted a jump route, and initiated takeoff. The ship had barely lifted a meter off the ground before every system died at once. No warning. No error. Just silence. It took him 3 hours to restart everything, and when he did, the sensors showed nothing unusual. Nothing at all. The second time was worse. He made it farther. The ship actually cleared the wreck field, rising into the ash-choked sky. For a moment, it looked like he might actually get out. Then the alarm started. Not mechanical, not system-based. External. Something large, moving fast. Too fast. The sensors couldn't lock it. The cameras couldn't track it. But it was there. Circling. Closing in. Not attacking. Just herding. Every time he tried to break away, the ship shook violently, like something massive had passed too close, just out of sight. A warning, a boundary, a message. Do not leave. So he came back down, carefully, slowly, and the moment the ship touched the ground again, everything stopped. No alarms, no movement, no presence, just silence, like nothing had ever been there. Now, on the third day, he didn't even bother powering the engines. He leaned against the wall instead, staring at the hatchling. "You're the reason, aren't you?" he said quietly. The creature blinked slowly. No answer. Of course. But it didn't look confused. If anything, it looked like it understood. A sudden clang echoed from outside the hull. He snapped upright instantly, rifle in hand. "All right," he muttered. "That's new." Another sound followed, distant, metal scraping against metal. Then, silence. He moved to the control panel, pulling up the external cameras. Static, distortion, then a flicker. The image cleared for half a second, long enough to see movement. Figures, 3 of them, humanoid, armed, raiders. His jaw tightened. Of course. They must have tracked his ship, or picked up the faint energy signature. Out here, anything functional was worth killing for. He switched camera angles. The figures moved cautiously through the wreckage, weapons raised, scanning. They hadn't seen the ship yet, but they would. It was only a matter of time. He glanced back at the hatchling. Still weak, still recovering. "Yeah," he said quietly. Not exactly great timing. He turned back to the console, checking his weapon charge. Low. A few good shots. That was it. 3 armed raiders, 1 half-functioning rifle, and something massive outside that refused to show itself. Perfect. The first raider spotted the ship. He saw it in the camera feed, the slight pause, the shift in posture, then the signal. They started moving faster, weapons up, directly toward him. He exhaled slowly, steadying himself. "All right," he whispered. "Let's do this." He moved toward the ramp, and stopped. Something was wrong. The raiders had slowed down. Not tactically, not carefully, hesitantly. One of them turned slightly, scanning behind them. Another lowered their weapon just a fraction. Confused. Then, one of them vanished. No sound, no struggle, no warning. Just gone. The other 2 froze, weapons snapping up, panic replacing precision. They spun, searching wildly. One shouted something. His audio didn't pick it up. Then, the second one disappeared, just like the first. The third didn't even get a chance to react. Gone. Silence. The camera feed flickered. Empty. No bodies. No movement. No sign they were ever there. He didn't move. Didn't breathe. Didn't blink. "Nope," he said quietly. "I'm not going out there." Behind him, the hatchling made a small sound. He turned slowly. It was watching him again. Calm. Almost content. As if what just happened was expected. His stomach twisted. "That was you, wasn't it?" he asked under his breath. The hatchling blinked. Slow. Unbothered. He let out a long breath, running a hand through his hair. "Yeah," he muttered. That's worse." Night came fast. Faster than it should have. The light outside dimmed into a deep, endless gray, the wind dying down into an unnatural stillness. Inside the ship, the silence grew heavier, thicker, like something was pressing against the walls. Watching, waiting. He sat near the table, rifle resting across his knees, eyes fixed on the hatchling. "You're not just some random creature," he said quietly. No response. But he didn't expect one anymore, because now he knew, whatever this thing was, it wasn't alone. It had never been alone. A shadow moved outside the ship, not on the screen, not on the sensors, but across the faint sliver of light near the ramp's edge. Huge, slow, deliberate. His breath caught. For a moment, he didn't move, didn't dare. Then, 2 faint glows appeared through the narrow seam of the ramp door. Eyes, massive, unblinking, ancient, not hostile, not yet, just watching. His grip tightened on the rifle. "Yeah," he whispered. "There you are." The eyes didn't move, didn't blink, didn't threaten. They simply remained. And after a long, heavy silence, they faded, gone, like they had never been there. He exhaled shakily, lowering the rifle just slightly. "Invisible guardian," he muttered. Behind him, the hatchling shifted, letting out a soft, almost peaceful sound. And for the first time since he found it, he understood the truth. Nothing came near them, because something far worse was already there, watching, protecting, waiting, and whatever it was starting to let him see it. By the fifth day, he stopped pretending he was in control. The hatchling could stand now, barely. Its movements were slow, uneven, but stronger than before. The splintered limb held its weight just enough for it to shift across the table, tiny claws gripping the metal surface as it tested each step. It shouldn't have been possible. Not this fast, not this clean. But here it was, alive, recovering, adapting. He watched it in silence, arms crossed. "You heal like that," he muttered, "and I'm supposed to believe you're harmless." The hatchling paused, glancing up at him. Those glowing eyes met his again. Calm, aware. It made a soft sound, short, almost curious. He shook his head. "Yeah, didn't think so." The outside presence hadn't left. Not once. He felt it now, constantly, like pressure behind his eyes. Not aggressive, not pushing, just there, waiting, observing, and somehow closer than before. The attack came at dusk. This time, it wasn't 3 raiders. It was a squad, 6, maybe more. Better armed, better organized, desperate. He saw them before they reached the ship, moving in formation through the wreckage, using cover, scanning properly. These weren't scavengers. These were hunters, and they knew exactly what they were looking for. "All right," he said under his breath, grabbing his rifle. "Guess round 2's not optional." The hatchling let out a soft sound behind him. He didn't tone. "Stay," he said firmly. "Just stay." It didn't argue. The first shot hit the hull, a sharp crack that echoed through the ship. Then another, and another. "They are not wasting time," he muttered. He moved to the control panel, trying to bring up the external feed. Static, nothing but distortion. Of course. The ramp shuddered under impact. A voice shouted from outside, muffled, aggressive. They were close, too close, and this time, nothing was stopping them. His jaw tightened. "Where are you?" he whispered. No answer, no presence, no movement. For the first time since it started, the thing outside was gone. The ramp buckled, metal groaned. Another hit, and the seal cracked. "They are coming in," he said quietly. He raised his rifle, stepping back into position. One way in, one chance. "All right," he breathed. "Let's make it count." The door burst open. Light flooded in, and shadows followed. The first raider stepped through, weapon raised. He fired. The shot hit center mass, dropping them instantly. The second came right after. Another shot, another hit, but there were too many. 3 more pushed in, spreading out, weapons snapping toward him. He ducked behind cover as energy rounds scorched the wall behind him. "Yeah," he muttered. "This is where it ends." His rifle clicked. Empty. Perfect. A raider moved around the side, weapon trained directly on him. No hesitation. No warning. Just a finger tightening on the trigger. He exhaled slowly. "Yeah," he whispered. "Worth it." Behind him, the hatchling cried out. Sharp, loud, different than before. Not weak, not afraid. Calling. The ground shook. Not slightly, not faintly, violently. Everything stopped. The raiders froze. The air itself seemed to compress. Then, a sound. Low, deep, not heard, felt, like the world itself had just spoken. The nearest wall of the ship collapsed. Not broken, not blasted. Pushed aside, like it meant nothing. And through the dust, something stepped forward. Massive, towering, unimaginable. The air bent around it. The light dimmed in its presence. A form too large for the space, yet somehow fitting. Its body was unlike anything he had ever seen, layered in smooth, dark armor that seemed almost alive, shifting subtly with each movement, limbs powerful enough to tear through steel without effort, and its eyes, burning, ancient, focused, not on him, on them. The raiders didn't even get a chance to react. 1 second they stood there, the next, they were gone, not thrown, not shot, just erased, as if they had never existed. Silence crashed back in. Heavy, absolute. He didn't move, couldn't. His body refused. His mind barely kept up with what his eyes were seeing. "Okay," he whispered, voice unsteady. That's new." The massive creature stepped fully into view, each movement slow, controlled, deliberate, not chaotic, not enraged, precise. Its gaze shifted from the empty space where the raiders had been to him. Everything in him screamed to run, to fight, to do something. But he didn't, because deep down, he already knew. If it wanted him dead, he would be. The creature tilted its head slightly, studying him, not as prey, not as a threat, as something else, something unfamiliar. Behind him, the hatchling moved. He felt it before he saw it, small claws gripping his jacket as it climbed weakly onto his shoulder. He tensed instinctively. "Don't," he whispered, but it didn't stop. It settled there, fragile, unafraid. Then it made a soft sound, not a cry, not pain, a call. The massive creature responded, not with movement, not with sound, but with something deeper, a shift, a recognition. The air changed. The weight lifted, just slightly, enough to breathe, enough to think. "You're not here for me," he said quietly. The words felt small, insignificant, but they were the truth. The creature stepped closer. The floor groaned beneath its weight. Closer, closer, until it stood just a few meters away, close enough to see the details, the patterns in its armor, the faint, almost organic flow of its structure, the intelligence behind those burning eyes. This wasn't just a creature. This was something else, something higher, something ruling. Understanding hit him all at once. Cold, clear, certain. "You're the queen," he whispered. The word hung in the air, and for the first time, the creature reacted. It lowered itself, slowly, not in submission, not in weakness, but in acknowledgement. His breath caught. "You've been following us," he said. No response, but he didn't need one. "You protected it," he continued. "You stayed outside. You stopped anything that got close." His voice faltered slightly. "You let me live." Silence. Heavy. Endless. The queen's gaze didn't leave him. Not even for a second. Behind him, the hatchling shifted again, pressing closer against his shoulder. Safe. Certain. Like it belonged there. "Why?" he asked quietly. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, the queen moved. Not forward, not back, but down, lowering its massive form just enough to bring its head level with him. Close, too close. And in that moment, he understood something without words, without sound, without explanation. It wasn't here to kill him. It wasn't here to take the hatchling back. It was here because of what he had done. He had protected the weakest creature on a world that devoured the weak. He had chosen compassion, where everything else chose survival. And the queen had been watching the entire time. His grip on the rifle loosened. Then, slowly, he let it fall, clattering to the ground. "Yeah," he whispered, "that makes this a lot more complicated." The queen didn't move, didn't attack, didn't leave. It simply remained there, beside him, not as a threat, not as a force, but as something far more dangerous. A presence that had just decided. He mattered. Silence didn't feel the same anymore. Not after that moment. Not after her. The queen didn't leave. Even now, she remained just beyond the broken edge of the ship, too large to fully enter, yet close enough that a presence filled every inch of space like gravity itself had shifted. Watching. Waiting. Not as a predator. As something aware. He didn't pick his rifle back up. It stayed where it had fallen. Useless. Meaningless, because deep down, he understood something now with absolute certainty. If she wanted him dead, there wouldn't be enough pieces left of him to bury. The hatchling rested against his shoulder, quieter than ever. Stronger, too. Its grip wasn't desperate anymore. It was steady, certain, like it had already decided where it belonged. He exhaled slowly. "Yeah," he muttered. "Guess I'm stuck with you." The creature made a soft sound in response, almost content. His eyes drifted back to the queen. She hadn't moved, not since lowering herself, not since acknowledging him. But there was no mistaking it now. This wasn't random. This wasn't instinct. This was a decision. "You could have taken it," he said quietly, voice echoing slightly in the wrecked hull. "At any point." No reaction. "You could have killed me, stopped me, never let me touch it." Still nothing. He let out a slow breath, shaking his head. "But you didn't." The queen's gaze remained locked on him, unblinking, ancient. "You watched," he continued, "from the start." The words felt heavy, real. "You saw what I did, and you chose to let it happen." A faint shift rippled through a massive form. Subtle, but there. Acknowledgement. His throat tightened slightly. "Why?" This time, something changed. The air itself seemed to respond, not with sound, not with movement, but with something deeper. A pressure, a presence, a thought that didn't belong to him. Yet somehow, he understood it. Not words, not language, but meaning, because you protected what could not protect itself. He stiffened, eyes widening slightly. "That wasn't me," he whispered. "That was you." Another shift, stronger this time. No, the weight of it pressed deeper into his mind. Clearer, sharper. "I watched. You chose." He swallowed hard. "Yeah," he said quietly. "Guess I did." Silence returned, but it wasn't empty anymore. He looked down at the hatchling, at the small creature that had somehow changed everything. "What is it?" he asked. A pause, long, measured. Then, understanding again. "Hey," his breath caught. "Of course it is." Everything clicked into place. The protection, the patience, the watching. This wasn't just a child. This was everything. "And me?" he asked slowly. "What does that make me?" The queen didn't hesitate this time. Uncertain, he let out a quiet, almost disbelieving laugh. "That's honest." Another shift, softer, changing. That wiped the smile from his face. "That doesn't sound reassuring." The hatchling moved slightly, pressing closer against his neck. Warm, alive, trusting. He stared at nothing for a long moment, thinking, processing, trying to make sense of something that didn't belong in his world. "I can't stay here," he said finally. His voice was steady, but firm. "I'm not built for this. This world, whatever's out there, it's not mine." The queen didn't react. Not immediately. "I've got people," he continued. "A life. Things that make sense." A pause. "At least they used to." Silence stretched between them. Heavy, meaningful. Then, the pressure returned. Not overwhelming, but present. "You may leave." He blinked. Surprised. Just like that. A faint shift. "You chose once. You may choose again." His gaze hardened slightly. "And the hatchling?" No answer. At first. Then, a single, undeniable truth. "It will not leave you." He looked down slowly. The small creature didn't move, didn't question, didn't hesitate. It had already chosen. "Yeah," he whispered. "I figured." He ran a hand through his hair, exhaling sharply. "This is insane." But even as he said it, it didn't feel wrong. He looked back at the queen, at the impossible being that could raise armies without effort, yet had chosen not to harm him. "If I go," he said slowly, "things won't stay quiet." A pause. "People will see it, hunt it, fear it." His voice lowered, tried to take it. The queen didn't move, didn't blink, but the response came instantly. "Then they will learn." Cold, certain, absolute. He believed it. That was the problem. "Yeah," he muttered. "That's what I'm afraid of." Silence settled again. But this time, it felt like an ending. He took a slow breath. Then another. Decision made. "All right," he said quietly. We do this my way. The hatchling shifted slightly, as if reacting to the tone in his voice. We leave, he continued, but not blind, not reckless. He glanced at the queen. I keep it alive. Hidden. Safe. A pause. And you... He hesitated, because saying it out loud felt insane. You stay out of sight. For a moment, nothing. Then, a subtle movement. Agreement. Not obedience. Not submission. Understanding. He let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. Right. Good. The ship groaned slightly as he toned, stepping toward the control panel. Systems flickered as he powered them up again. This time, no resistance, no failure, no interference. He paused, looking back one last time. The queen hadn't moved. Still there, still watching, still present. I guess this is it, he said quietly. The hatchling let out a soft sound. Not sad, not afraid, just aware. He gave a small nod, then stepped fully into the pilot's seat. The engines hummed, stronger than before. Outside, the massive form of the queen began to fade into the dust and shadow, not leaving, just becoming unseen again. A guardian in the dark. The ship lifted slowly from the ground. No resistance, no warning, no force holding it back. Freedom. As the wasteland shrank beneath him, he glanced down at the hatchling resting beside him. You just changed everything, he muttered. The creature blinked slowly, calm, certain. Far below, hidden beneath storm and ruin, the queen watched him go, not as something lost, but as something sent. And somewhere deep in the void ahead, the future shifted, because humanity didn't know it yet. But one man hadn't just saved a dying creature. He had earned the attention of a queen, and taken her heir into a world that was never ready for what was coming next.